Disclaimer: this is not your typical art subscription box. I ask that you watch the entire video until the very end before leaving any comments. Please note that if you are a mega fan of art subscription boxes, this video may offend you. Moreover, if you are a self-proclaimed hoarder of art supplies and very proud of that fact, this video is not for you. Now, without further ado, please sit back, relax, and enjoy. Hello, Julie here, and in this video, we are going to be unboxing the Hoarding Art Mystery Box. This is a brand spanking new mystery box, and this is the first box I've ever received and the first one I'm ever gonna unbox. So I always see YouTube videos of people unboxing like the Scrawler box and the Art Snacks box. This is my first one, Hoarding. This is really my first time hearing about it. It seems like it's quite a new company, so it'll be interesting to see what's inside. Also, ignore that watermark on the corner. So the way my camera's set up, I can't actually see what I'm filming. That's why my shots are always off center. I really ought to get a better setup, but that was from my jar of water that I always keep on my desk when I'm painting. Because I filmed this video after filming my new Heartbreak Heads Challenge series. So if you guys want to check that out, I have a bunch of shorts on my channel. Anyways, opening the box up, there is this lovely postcard, and I will read it out loud for you guys. Thank you for supporting our small business. Your decision to choose Hoarding contributes to a dream, a vision, and a livelihood. It allows us to continue pursuing our passion of serving artists in all places and of all levels. If you have any questions or feedback, please don't hesitate to reach out. We'd love to hear how we can improve in serving our community of creatives. Sincerely, the Hoarding team. I really do enjoy when companies include a note. It adds more of a personal touch. That watermark is driving me crazy. Please ignore it. Anyways, some of the items are wrapped in this pretty sparkly pink tissue. And the first items here are a bunch of black fine liners. So this is from the brand Recollections. This is my first time really hearing about this brand. But these pens come in 4 different sizes. So we have size 0.3, size 0.8, 0.2, and 0.7. I was actually speaking as I was unboxing this, but the audio quality wasn't that great. I think my clamp was covering my microphone, so that's why I'm recording a voiceover. I'm just swatching out these pens, and it looks like the 02 and 03, they really look like they're the same size. And then the 07 is definitely quite a bit thicker, and the 08 is pretty identical to the 07, I would say. And I just used a random sketchbook page in my Canson Mixed Media sketchbook where I swatched some previous items. This page was where I was testing out the Himi paintbrush set in different sizes, so I'll link that video down below if you're interested. But I wanted to see if these fine liners were waterproof because I work mostly with watercolors. And it looks like these are pretty waterproof. There was a teeny tiny bit of bleeding, but for the most part, they work really well. So I'm very impressed with these, and I'll definitely make some use out of them. The next item in the Hoarding Art Mystery Box was also wrapped up in sparkly pink tissue paper, and these are Artix acrylic markers. And I know Artix have come out with markers recently that have a brush nib, but these ones use a bullet nib, so they are a little bit different. I am very curious about the brush nib markers. They look really cool to work with. And I'll link some other YouTubers playing around with them down below so you know what I'm talking about. But they really do look beautiful. Like, think Posca markers, except with a brush tip. Like, how amazing is that? I'm not sure if Posca makes brush tips. I don't really follow, and I've never owned Posca markers. So I guess the markers that I'm showcasing here in this video are probably closer to Posca's than they are the Artix brush markers. The instructions said to shake to activate, so that is what I am doing here. And I pushed down on the nib and a lot of paint came out, so it was really liquidy. It took me a little while to figure out how to use these. I don't think you're actually supposed to push down on them. I think you're just supposed to shake and go, and then if it runs dry, then you push down. I really do like how these colors turned out. I like how they dried pretty flat and matte. They feel like a watered down version of gouache, or something between like a gouache and an acrylic. They weren't as matte as gouache paints are, but they do have like this really nice flat, bold coverage that is reminiscent of gouache. These pens are water-based, so they are water-based acrylic markers, which seems like a contradiction because acrylics aren't normally water-based, so maybe they are actually gouache pens. I have no idea. Some of them were more liquid than the others, but I do like the colors I received. Not in terms of creating a functional art piece, but they just looked really nice swatched all together on one page. I'm not actually sure what I would do with these colors and with these markers. It's definitely a unique medium, and it would take some brainstorming for me to figure out how to use them. In this video, I'm actually just swatching all of these out. I'm not going to make an art piece with them yet because that would take way too long. So maybe if you guys are interested, I'll make a part 2 video of me actually using these supplies. The purple marker actually felt more like a water-based marker in that it didn't dry completely matte and you could see the brush strokes, but the rest of them were actually really good in terms of coverage. I tried using the white and it actually pulled some of the blue paint that was already on that page. And the thing is, like, I swatched this page months ago, so I'm surprised that it was able to reactivate the watercolor. But I tried activating the white pen by pressing down on it, and the second time I tried using it over the blue, it worked out really well, and it has pretty good coverage. Not perfect, but pretty good. Okay, so the next item in the box are these pastel watercolors. There's no brand name associated with them. And they're not half pans. They're definitely less than that. I don't know if quarter pans are a thing. The pans themselves are quite small and the paints seemed a bit tacky. I didn't feel it before I sprayed it, but they really do seem like they're semi-wet paint. I'm very glad there's a watercolor palette in here because I absolutely love watercolors. Watercolors are my medium of choice. I've had my Mei Liang Pretty Excellent palette for maybe about 6 years and it's still going strong, which probably means I need to paint more. In terms of something that comes in an art mystery box that caters to what I like to use, watercolors is always going to be one of those items. The paints were somewhat reminiscent of gouache in that they were quite opaque, but I guess that's to be expected when you are working with a pastel set. In order to get those really light pastel colors, I'm sure they would need to incorporate some kind of white pigment just to bring those colors out. But honestly, I don't mind it. I don't really work with pastels, so this will definitely be an interesting challenge for me to create something with this palette. And I will try to figure out what this brand name is and where you can get it so that I can link this item down below if I'm able to find it. And if you guys have any ideas what I can do with a pastel watercolor palette, let me know. If you have any prompts that I can play around with, I'll definitely do that. I will say, although watercolors are meant to be transparent, I do like how opaque these are. For some reason, it feels satisfying. And the colors are just all so pretty. So I'm actually really excited to work with these. Also, can I just say, I love sketchbook pages of just random swatches. And I feel like this page is coming together in terms of the colors. I'm noticing a bit of a pastel theme here, and I'm kind of loving it. Even though that's not my typical color palette of choice. We also have this matcha flavored Kit Kat. I'm glad that this box came with a little treat because that seems to be a common theme among all art mystery boxes is that they come with some kind of exotic candy or something. But it does look like this one got a little bit melted during transportation. It is summer here in Vancouver. I'm not too bothered by it. I took a bite and it was delicious. I do love a strong matcha flavor and I feel like this was pretty good. It wasn't too sweet and you could really taste the matcha. I've actually seen these Kit Kats at our local T&T, which is like our big Asian supermarket here in Vancouver and around Canada. I'm not sure if they have them over in the US or anywhere else. Here in Canada, T&T is definitely the place to go for all your Asian foods. It's like an Asian Walmart and it's perfect. So the last item I have here are these colored pencils and the brand name is Marco. I've never heard of this brand name and it looks like they are made in China. Now, while these colors are really pretty, I rarely work with colored pencils. So I'm not sure if this is something I'll actually use and ignore the paint on my desk. I have no idea how that got there. I pulled out a few colors to swatch out for you guys. And as I was swatching, they really were reminiscent of maybe a slightly harder version of a Prismacolor Scholar. Because Prismacolor Scholars are really quite soft, even though they're supposed to be student grade. They're really soft and buttery. These were also soft and buttery, but not as soft as Prismacolor Scholars. They went down on the page very nicely and there was little white space left over. These definitely seem like pretty decent quality colored pencils, but again, they're not really a medium that I work with often. So I feel like I don't have the proper background to fully review them. I mean, they're colored pencils, they're pretty colors, they work like colored pencils. Some of them were actually not as smooth as some of the others, which was interesting. So they were pretty consistent, but there were a couple colors that I swatched that didn't have the same level of coverage, like the green. Overall, all of the items I received are pretty neat. It seems like it's pretty good value. I really like that there was a common theme. I like the pastel colors, and I like that the colors kind of match the box too, like the design on the box. Speaking of the design of the box, I really like it. I like how there are these like cartoony art supplies and they're printed on the cardboard box. You're probably wondering what the deal is with that weird disclaimer at the start of the video. I know it seems I'm excited about this art mystery box, and honestly, I am. But I don't support art mystery boxes. In fact, I think they're kind of a problem. I also believe that we as artists and crafters tend to hoard art supplies. That is also something that I don't support. So let's start this video from the top. Yes, this is a video about an art subscription box. That much is true. But this box is not something that you could buy from a website or at a store. If you're interested in getting your hands on a box like this, the only way to do that is to make one. That's right. This is a homemade art mystery box. The thing is, I didn't buy any of the art supplies you see in this video. Not recently, at least. These are items that are either new or barely used that I found in and around my art space, aka my bedroom in my parents' home. The housing crisis is insane, okay? Some items are as old as 4 years. Why did I decide to make my own art mystery box? Well, it's because I've got issues with mystery boxes and issues in general, but today isn't the day for that. I've got issues with the way we as crafters, painters, and creatives love to hoard supplies, and how we view our hoarding as something useful or productive. It's not the same as hoarding makeup or clothing or luxury purses or anything feminine leaning, because women hoarding womanly things is inherently shallow. Insert commentary about the patriarchy here. Again, not the day for that. But I think it has something to do with this idea that buying something towards a productive hobby that's a skill-based isn't seen as a frivolous purchase. That is, until you realize that your quote-unquote productive space is jam-packed with so many items that you haven't touched in ages and likely never will. I wrote a blog post a few months ago titled Hoarding Art and Craft Supplies and Feeling Guilty About It. JulieRocksArt.com, by the way. And I really think this best encapsulates my feelings towards art supply collecting. So, here goes. During peak COVID times, motivated in part by the fear of being laid off from my front-facing job, I decided to partake in a no-buy year. This only lasted about 3 months since I, shortly after, decided to live and work in South Korea for 2 years. While I wanted to continue with my no-buy journey, preparing to move across the globe necessitated a bit of shopping. While I only managed to commit to a quarter of the year, there was still plenty I took away from the experience. I made a video titled Stop Hoarding Art Supplies a couple of years ago, and have some updated thoughts and opinions. This post better represents where I stand when it comes to over-purchasing art supplies. A no-buy year is in equal parts a challenge as it is a lifestyle. It's a promise to yourself not to partake in shopping, with only a few exceptions. Anyone is open to interpret the challenge the way they'd like. For me, this meant groceries, gas, gifts to others, and replacement items were allowable, and clothes, shoes, home decor, beauty products, and art supplies were off limits. The hardest part about sticking to my no-buy quarter year was not missing out on the latest fashion trends. It wasn't banning myself from setting foot into my rendition of Sephora, aka Walmart's beauty section. And it definitely wasn't averting my eyes away from the home goods at Winners, Ross, Marshalls, etc. Okay, maybe this one was actually a bit tough. The most difficult part of my no-buy journey was, of course, ridding myself of the painfully seductive allure of brand new art supplies. Looking through my old sketchbooks, I understood why I'd built the habit of shopping for arty things over the years. One of the advantages of learning how to art as an adult is having the financial means to support this hobby, and consequently having the resources to dive headfirst into a very wide array of mediums. As a beginning artist and working adult, the sky's the limit. You don't have a clue which medium suits you best. The desire to experiment is just so intense. My old sketchbooks tell a story of a very scattered young adult, one who started off with pencils, moved on to ink, followed by colored pencils, then switched over to alcohol markers, followed again by watercolors, then acrylics, then back to watercolors. After that, it was gouache, Himi/Maya gouache bandwagon, a one-night stand with oil paint, and then, to no one's surprise, watercolors. Throughout each one of these phases, I purchased items to play around with. And in all honesty, I don't feel bad for picking up these supplies and trying them out. It's all part of the discovery stage of learning art. So for this reason, I have no regrets. Not overbuying the first sets of each mediums at least. The second, third, and or fourth watercolor, gouache, colored pencils, etc. set, however, yeah, there's plenty of guilt there. Art supplies are meant to be used. They're not doing their job if they're just collecting dust. That doesn't spark joy for either party, not the user nor the item. Yes, sometimes I pretend my art supplies have emotions, and no, I don't have many friends, okay? I understand improving in your craft and wanting to upgrade to higher quality supplies, along with not being willing to make that initial investment in the good stuff right off the bat because of financial constraints. Why invest in $100 worth of Prismacolor Premieres if you're not sure that you enjoy working with colored pencils? But none of us need every new palette or set of a supply the second it hits the market. We don't need to buy the massive 56-piece set of jelly gouache that makes its rounds on YouTube, or the 300-piece set of alcohol markers that are just such a great deal. Especially not if we have 30 gouache paints and over 100 markers already. Hoarding art supplies is a common act among many types of visual artists. Maybe it's the thought of a new set of acrylics being a productive purchase over, say, a brand new sweater. It's for your craft after all. And if you're working as a professional artist, your supplies are a write-off. It becomes easy to justify. But at the end of the day, there are simply no winners in the arena of excessive consumption. It just isn't sustainable. It doesn't matter whether you're picking up a new hat or a new box of colored pencils. If they're not being used, were they really worth the production, packaging, shipping, and time it took to create them in the first place? And maybe they can live a second life when donated, but is it worth that chance if they could equally just end up in a landfill? At the end of the day, bigger isn't always better, and more can be overwhelming. As a fellow human living on this planet, I really make an effort to scrutinize my spending habits, and I encourage you to do the same. Before purchasing something that's not a necessity, I question whether or not I'll actually use it enough to warrant taking it home. I ask myself whether I already have something that's similar or can meet a similar need. I wonder why I feel the need to purchase something new. Am I filling some kind of void? And if I do decide that I want to go through with a purchase, if it's something I can find secondhand, I try to explore that avenue. My spending habits definitely aren't perfect. I cave at times. It's really difficult to walk away from temptation after a long day or after being constantly bombarded with ads that make your wants feel like needs. But pursuing a short-lived no-buy year really did wonders in breaking my consumption habits, especially when it came to the number one culprit, that is brand new art supplies. During that time, I gave away many items to a retired coworker since I knew she would give those supplies the opportunity to fulfill their purpose, to be used and to be appreciated. Finally, to my dear beginner artists out there, and I write this from experience, building your roster of art supplies won't make you a better artist. Going to Michael's and picking up a new sketchbook when you're not even halfway through your current one doesn't help to refine your skills. The only thing that does is, say it with me, practice. I know, it's not as dopamine-filled as shopping for more. Again, I'm saying this from far too personal experience. Please don't use the act of buying new arty things you don't need in order to compensate for your lack of skill. Sometimes, to this day, I need to remind myself of this fact. Think of that person who feels great after stocking up on self-improvement books, but neither reads nor applies their teachings. Don't be that guy. I'm well aware that it's not my place to police anyone's spending habits, but I genuinely believe that as consumers, we need to start normalizing enough is good enough when it comes to the quantity of items we bring into our homes, and inadvertently, the quantity of items that end up in the bin. At the end of the day, all we can really do is our best to consume intentionally, given the world and systems that we live in. If you decide to try out a no-buy challenge, best of luck to you. It's a difficult thing to question our spending habits and make the effort to break out of a desire for more, especially when we've been conditioned to think this way for most of our lives. I truly hope it works out for you and commend you for your effort. Insert smooth segue here. That was the end of the blog post. I really ought to get better at my transitions, but I hope these words got you thinking a little bit. The issue I have with art supply boxes is that they remove you from the experience of making intentional purchases. Think about it. You're buying a box that has a random assortment of items in it, and you're blind to what's in it. You're buying things you don't even know you're buying until they end up on your doorstep. On paper, it just sounds like the embodiment of a capitalist dystopian world. And if you've been doing art for a while, you likely already have all of the supplies that you need. How many of these art subscription box reviews do you watch here on YouTube where the person point blank says that they don't work with the mediums that they end up receiving? Or in some cases, they already have a lot of similar supplies as the ones in the box. It just feels so unnecessary and redundant. If you love your art mystery boxes, please share your thoughts down below, because I'm always down to hear other sides of the story. I do think it's a fun concept to receive a present for yourself every month, and it can be an exciting way to try new supplies. A lot of the art YouTubers that I follow here at one point have been sponsored by art mystery box companies. So I do really like that they support the livelihood of social media artists. But overall, I can't say that the pros outweigh the cons in my opinion. There, I said it. So yes, in this video, I made my very own art mystery box. And I did it by shopping around my very own art corner. I know it's not the most thrilling place for a shopping spree, but it could be worth having a look in your dusty drawers for some forgotten art supplies. Maybe you'll rediscover how much you enjoy using them. Or maybe you'll realize that you, in fact, don't enjoy using them, and that may prompt you to pass them along to someone who does. I will say it was a lot of fun to design and paint my own art supply box. And I do intend to make an art piece out of my own forgotten supplies that I showed you in this video. So stay tuned for it. I truly, sincerely hope that you enjoy this video. Let me know what your thoughts are below in terms of hoarding art supplies and whether or not you agree with some of my own opinions. I'd love to open up the comment section for discussion. As usual, stay creative, and I'll see you in the next one. Ciao!